Okay, so in parallel, I would like also just keep writing and finishing on the chat, and then we can have, so Carol and Ayrton, please receive our appreciation throughout the chat, through the importance of your work throughout this journey is being key, and it's very, very important for us to have this inclusion and to embrace everyone who comes in a different way. So thank you so much to all of you. We're gonna have a question because we had a very wonderful day in our last session, but we would really like to know a little bit more about how much it was for you. So I'm gonna send now as a Mentimeter link in a chat, asking you to say, what do you appreciate most about our last session that you would like to share here? How much it was, how important it was, or how much you actually, I'm sorry. Okay, I found myself. In a way that we can share. So what do you appreciate most about our last session that you would like to share here? What do you appreciate the most? And o que mais você apreciou em nossa última sessão que
What
gostaria de
do you
compartilhar?
appreciate the most in our last session that you would like to share here?
Uma sessão que eles gostaria de compartilhar aqui. It was great to hear about everyone's projects and to better understand and appreciate the good work for everyone in this program. Thank you. What I actually appreciate the most is also to understand more and learn more about each other's project, and to think and have my time of reflection to consider new bridges that I can also build throughout and among the projects that I've been participating in Brazil as well, to see how much I can emphasize and add. Darse cuenta que hay posibilidades concretas de conectar y hacer sinergias con iniciativas de otras latitudes de la región. Fue una sesión muy inspiradora que nos permitió compartir y conocer las diferentes iniciativas de proyectos, las motivaciones, los valores y el compromiso que nos une. I really feel a deep sense of community is emerging, and the potential impact we are going to have right across the global south, like kindred spirits traveling together. It was such an amazing opportunity to understand deeply about each other's motivations and initiatives. Hear how each project deals with different ways to have a more pro-social world. Conocer la diversidad de proyectos y los involucrados.
Learn about the diversity of projects and those involved has been a great experience, a social learning experience as well.
If you can gostei de conhecer pouco os projetos.
I enjoyed getting to know the projects a bit.
I enjoyed learning the projects, etc.
So if you have a chance to keep on sharing, I can bring it back after, but I'll hand it to you, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. It is amazing what we managed to achieve. I think today we're actually transitioning into an important phase, a phase of action learning, where subsequent sessions will be spending time just sharing more and more what it is we're actually achieving in the world. Michelle's going to talk to us more about how we're going to set that up later, but we have kind of imagined that from now until November, when we have our celebration, we'll provide opportunities for everyone to do mini TEDx talks, so we can just keep each other up to date with what we're doing, and just transition much more into a coaching phase. Anyway, let me share my screen. I'd like to introduce an approach to having a group coaching conversation. So our aim during this action learning phase is to actually go through about 4 to 5 action learning cycles, as each of us pursue the opportunities that we've actually outlined. We outlined last session. And so the aim is for us to actually form these small action learning or peer consultations groups together, so that every couple of weeks we can come together and just appraise what's happening, just reflect on how we're going in relation to the opportunity we're pursuing, and particularly take time to pause, reflect, and reset your compass and reboot if relapse occurs. Like, it's really important, I think, to appreciate that relapse is utterly natural, that there's no such thing as just automatic change. I think you all appreciate this, and that if sustained change is going to emerge, then it's very natural to expect that we'll relapse at least 3 to 5 times before the beginning of change actually emerges. And so, important thing to do is, when we're trying to actually change or shift things personally or as a group, that we really become good at listening, sensing things differently so that we respond differently. And so the whole idea is to get much better at deep and active listening, being able to ask really powerful and awareness increasing questions, and also communicating very openly about what is happening, and just helping each other to learn and change behavior. So that's what we're going to strive to achieve over the coming 6 to 8 weeks. Now, we've just done our Mentimeter about what did we appreciate about last session. So we've all got a really good sense of what's emerging, and I think the power we have as a community to be able to be shaping our schools and our environments, and looking after different species of animals, or helping communities who are trying to rebuild or change in the way business is done. And so this is where we are in the project. We're just entering phase 7. And I think if I zoom in, you can see that the action learning cycle illustrates this loop. Who's tried to actually, who's made a New Year's resolution to do something different and have been able to achieve it straight off the bat? No one? Yeah. So it's one of the amazing things about appreciating that this loop is natural, is it cultivates a learning culture. I mean, so I think everyone would agree that that the notion of failure is just entrenched in all that we do. We go to school and we have to strive to actually pass or fail exams. When we're at work, if we fail, we get into trouble. Within our relationships, failure is always part of what's going on. And so we spend a lot of time trying to control and avoid the experience of failure, without realizing that if we're striving to change, there is no such thing as failure. So please remember that if you can build this thinking into your community, that any relapse is a moment to celebrate and learn, pause, reboot, and celebrate and learn, ask questions about what it is we can do differently. And so that's what I want to do is introduce you to a process of pausing and reflecting and rebooting. Before I do it, I want to share an experience of someone that I've worked with in Africa quite some time ago now, and then invite you all to share a story about when you've been able to create that special space, or you've actually been in a very special space, a very deep connection with others, of real learning and support, and kind of co-venturing. Really, you're kind of on a sense of mission to achieve something in the world. I'm sure we've all been in that special kind of relationship. And I'm going to give you a story of when I observed it myself before we get into the, before I invite you to actually share your stories. So let me just bring up a video. I'll give you a bit of a backstory. There's a chap that I worked with in Africa. Let me bring up another picture actually to illustrate this. So I'm going to show you a short video that this chap here with this striped shirt, Godfrey Nwabisi, who is from Nigeria. I worked with him for about 6 months or a bit more. We stayed in touch with each other for about 2 years, but intensely for about 6 months. He was working with 9 tribes around, I'll just go to another, here he is again, 9 tribes around 2 freshwater lakes in Nigeria. And these communities, they were really struggling. They were starving because the lakes that they were in had been overfished. They were all fishermen. And because the lakes had been overfished, these communities had resorted to making homemade dynamite to blow up the last bits of fish that were in the lakes. And this tin plate is indicative of a catch. So it's very sad. And there's a cultural norm that the son of a fisherman had to be a fisherman. So no one actually was allowed to culturally to actually grow food or produce food in other ways, which is a shame. And it even got to the point where the young women in these communities, if to sell any of their fish at a local market, they had to give away their body to the fishmonger as well. So it was a lot of suffering. Anyway, Godfrey, he went back. He worked with these 9 tribes to create this special space. And I want to show you a video of when this emerged. You know, over the time that I worked with him, I guess a little bit like some of the folk in your communities, participatory videos. He was sending me videos every couple of months, capturing his journey. And when he began, he was going into these communities, and they're very standoffish because his job was law enforcement. So you can imagine they were very nervous about who he was. The women and children would disappear as soon as he'd drive into the village, and the men would just stand back and lean on trees or on their little shanties, very suspicious. Anyway, he cultivated this relationship. He actually went through the process, the very same process that we've been going through, where he spent time asking, what are the critical factors that will change our communities for not only us, but our children? And how can we work together to impact on them? And what little projects can we do in order to make a difference? So this video is at a point where they agreed, yes, there are some opportunities. Let's all the 9 tribes come together and make a plan to look after each other. And so when you're watching this, it goes for about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. It's mostly in their native tongue, so you won't understand it. But there's a few moments where he speaks English, and you can hear him talking about these opportunities and coming together to cooperate and coming to joining a meeting in a city. So I'll just share the screen. You'll notice that they're on a ceremonial mat and the chief and everyone is sitting above him. So he's very humble.
That's why we need their cooperation and they need our own. And we have to be working together. That once we avail ourselves any opportunity, it will also come to them. Amma duk lokacin da dama ya samu shi ya tabbatar muku da yanda ya yi da shi zai kare. So, ya Jama, ya Tairu, inshallah, Tanko, tell him that we are planning to come to Tungamurwa maybe next month or so. Yo, what's a yajia? To Meriva, Meri Yazo, Bada Yoruba, Bezova, to Senu, Yo, to Kagade Jama, Yo, yeah.
So it's a very powerful experience. These, when over the 1.5 years that I was connected with him, but particularly within the first 6 to 8 months, the change was extraordinary. You know, he said that he wrote to me at one point, and he said, in his Afrikaans voice, he said, long-term changes for sure now. He said 2 fundamental beliefs have actually shifted. And I asked him what they were, and he said the first one was that they had all subscribed to the belief that the reason why there was no fish in the lake was because God decided there was no fish. And the second belief was that the only way they were going to survive until God decided to put fish back in the lake is to rely on external aid, or to resort to these very unreasonable means, you know, making dynamite and using mosquito nets to drag fish out. Anyway, they shifted and realized that their future was actually in their hands. And they decided that one of the critical factors was this cultural norm that the son of a fisherman had to be a fisherman. You know, they allowed the youth to actually start growing market gardens. And we worked together with another NGO that came in and ran programs that did 2 things. One was to teach them market garden, you know, how to grow food and set up a little market garden, but also to clean up the local marketplace where it was very corrupt. And by the end of the second year, he, by all reports, more than 87% of voluntary change had actually occurred across all the 9 tribes. But the important thing is that he created this special space, this space where there was a lot of trust and a lot of deep care for each other. And what I'm kind of interested for us to do now is to just stop and think about a time when you've actually been in a space like that, because I'm sure we all have. And the reason why I wanted sort of us to explore this is because this is the kind of space that I'm hoping, that we actually strive to create as we're going on our action learning journey. So I think, Michelle, we're going to go into some breakout rooms, aren't we? Yeah. So what I'd like to do is go into a breakout room and spend, how long? We're going to have about 10 minutes. Yeah, about 10 minutes. So spend about 10 minutes with someone, just recalling a time when you work together within this space, and ask yourself, so what 2 things, what did you do to create the space, and what was the experience of being in the space? So I'll just jot those in the chat.
We will have 10 minutes in our break. And also we are trying to adjust so people can stay with pairs that can speak their mother tongue. So we're gonna have Brazilians with Brazilians, and we have people who speak Spanish with Spanish. If you do have any other option, I think Margot is gonna stay here with me. Margot, we make a combination of Portuguese, Spanish, and English. And then also we're gonna put everybody else's in the separate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we come back, we'll share some stories. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Robert. just one change, and I'm gonna need to change someone. And then in the breakout rooms, can you just change? Maybe Margot can stay with whoever stays with Lorenza, and Lorenza will stay with me in the main room. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Rayana? Okay, so any questions? We have the questions in the chat, so we're gonna have 10 minutes. It's good to have maybe 5 minutes and 5 minutes, and then after we're gonna have a time to share in the plenary when you get back. Thank you so much. See you in 10 minutes.
So be nice now to hear some stories from people about you know, the spaces. Tell us about some of your spaces very briefly, and what happened that resulted in that space and how it made you feel. Gail and I were just sharing the experience of being in a kind of a creative spaces, you know, where you're sharing art, and how rich that is. And I think we didn't speak to it explicitly, but I think underneath it there was the experience was safe, really safe to be open and vulnerable, and a deep sense of sharing and kind of gifting to each other. It was wonderful. But others, I'd love to hear some others. I might let's pass the banner a bit. So Felipe, how about you?
A gente falou bastante sobre a importância de, tipo, trazer isso para o diálogo, de como a gente conseguir construir essa cultura colaborativa.
How we can build this collaborative culture and talk about it actively with our group. And by means of that, we could train and improve our conscience and our awareness more and more so that we can put everything into practice. And that's what we kind of noticed.
Yeah, wonderful. So Felipe, would you like to pick someone else to share their experience next? A few words.
Vou colocar o Marcelo.
I'll ask Marcelo so that he can add to what I just said. I was with Felipe in the room, and it was very cool. We were reflecting about what matters for a collaboration to happen, and we shared very many ideas. One of them was how important it is to acknowledge, because we use the same word here, apparently it's similar, but you know, we have very distinct interpretations. So what I said to Felipe was, when I'm able to put my internal world, I acknowledge that it exists, but when I'm able to put it in the second plane, I'm able to live in the world with the others more intensely. And this is all moved by humility and humbleness, you know, curiosity of what these different meanings are. And I'm able to dive in a more genuine collaboration with a much more effective level of trust. That's what I'd like to share with you. And I'd like to invite Ricardo to speak next.
Gracias, Marcelo. Bueno, yo estaba hablando con Margot acerca
Thank you,
de...
Marcelo. Actually, I was talking to Margot about an experience we had last year in a Araucania department in Colombia here, a community of peasants and farmer. In that space, we had the opportunity to actually carry out a participatory workshop to learn about their perceptions about the forest, the use of native plants, and also how they see a palm tree, for example, a specific one, how they see it. And so I think that the most beautiful thing of that space right there was to have had the opportunity to generate a process of empathy with the different participants, those who joined that experience. And this was a little bit of, let's say, this was due to the fact that we had the possibility to generate a sense of equality among ourselves, those of us who were actually facilitating the workshop to the participants. And so usually people of the academia, the academy, they actually people, those who are known as those who bring knowledge, or those who actually come to explore resources and all these kinds of things. And since the very beginning, we were very honest, telling them, look, no, we don't know the territory. We are here to learn. And we started learning quite a lot with you. And I think that this attitude of, let's say, this is the way we actually guided the workshop itself. And so that produced some equality, some empathy, and that gave origin to some dialogues that were very, very special, very rich in terms of information. Not only that, but also very rich in terms of human values coming from the territory itself. In other words, the outcome of that result was a very, very special process in this very moment, but also the establishment of ties and bonds with those communities. This is what I would like to share with you. And now I pass the microphone over to, let me see, let me point somebody. Maria Paula, please.
Hola, bueno, yo conversé con Diego. Él me
Well, I
contó un poco
talked to
sus
Diego
experiencias
about
en su
our
organización, de pues cómo crear este espacio de
about his experience in his organization in terms of how to establish these spaces of confidence and collaboration. So we were discussing this, and he spoke a little bit about how, from this process of producing a new meaning, of re-signifying, regarding all this kind of social work which is done, the way he described, that allows participants or those who are part of the organization, that they discover that each one has a different skill, a different ability, that each one may do different things, and they have also their capability, their possibility to learn. And from that concept, this may generate this space of confidence and collaboration. And I myself, as I was along with Diego in my case, I devoted myself much more to research. But as my research studies have been much more a qualitative cut based on the dissertation I'm now preparing, which has to do with the perception on the part of the teachers of the primary education regarding well-being. So as they may speak about their experiences, and as they hear themselves, there are other aspects that may facilitate or even hinder or impair the well-being of those students. And in some way, this causes them to actually feel or start feeling that it's okay not being well regarding a couple of things. And also that there are some aspects that have nothing to do specifically with their own responsibility as teachers, because there are also some external facts or external things that prevent them to feel well, that they actually feel well. So I think that this is one of the major steps which will lead to the creation, establishment of spaces of collaboration and confidence for the future generation, so that works things that we can do with the teachers as well. Maria, well, yes, I pass the floor over to Gail.
Thank you, Maria. Well, I was with Robert, and since Robert already told his story, I got to tell a lot of mine. The reason we are here, One Earth Conservation, is because I'm involved with a group called Earth Regenerators, which has been working with Pro-Social World for a while. And Earth Regenerators is really all about creating deep trust and collaboration so we can do our parts to make things better here on Earth. And so I've been involved for more than 2 years with that group, and in almost every meeting we go to, there's just a huge, huge amount of trust and ability to work together kindly, warmly, with vulnerability and with honesty, and amazing things have emerged out of that. It's been a wonderful experience, and I have no plans to stop. People who get really involved tend to stay because it's just so great. we also had a little side conversation about the arts and how important they are for what we're all doing, and how people don't value them enough. And we didn't have any solutions for that, but we definitely were in agreement about that. So I will pass this on to Sylvia.
Gracias, Gail. Hola, bueno, yo estuve en la sala con Violeta. Y bueno, me gustó mucho conocer el proyecto donde trabaja ella, el proyecto que ellas están desarrollando y la formación también que tiene Violeta. Y platicamos un poco sobre la experiencia de ambas, de cómo venir un poco con lo que comentó Ricardo, del campo o del origen, en mi caso, de la academia, y llegar, por ejemplo, cuando hacía yo proyectos de investigación en campo, tenía que yo conversar, o incluso a veces que una persona que saqueaba los nidos fuera mi guía en el campo. Yo siempre respeté el espacio, respeté siempre hacer un espacio de crear un lazo de empatía, y nunca llegar como a imponer ni a querer
This is a kind of space, so thank you. It's very important to understand, because I knew that people there, in the different areas, they are the fields I've been working in for a couple of years, and I learned with my mistakes as well, right? I don't know if I was doing something wrong or not, and so this is very important. So I always became aware that I was really learning with the others. That was a space of learning, a space of empathy, and the different pieces started getting fitting into each other in terms of the project itself, and in which people had another perspective, which was quite dynamic, not only regarding the forests themselves and perception of the forest itself, but also regarding the social aspects. And I enjoyed really very much to talk to Violeta, and I would like to ask her to add to what I'm saying, especially regarding our talk, right? Our discussion. So thank you very much. Yes, and regarding what we were talking to Sylvia about, my experience, well, I started working with young people, and in this process, I understood a little bit better how to connect to young people, and having a more solid kind of relationship with these people. And this has to do with this space of confidence that we were talking about, as Robert said, and so that everybody can, people start feeling as being belonging to that area, so that they may start getting interested in sharing their experiences and so on. And this is something that shows the development, the process of development of confidence. And there are other elements that seem to be interesting in terms of working with the young people, is that I do not, well, maybe this does not happen through the academic regular process, but there is this feeling that they are underestimated, and they are usually underestimated. But as I worked along with them, it's important to have this relationship in terms of recognition, and especially, well, now I pass the floor to Matthews. I'm sorry, her sound was not good. Anyway, Matthews. Do you hear me? Yes. Oh, Margot. Okay. Well, I was in the room. I was in the room with Ricardo. That was a very, very, I would say, beautiful experience. We spoke about working based on empathy and how we can share wisdom and actually open room in order to bring in the wisdom that actually comes from these individuals. And that made me reflect upon my own work. Say, especially works that I did during the period of the COVID and working along with the physicians, as I'm a psychologist, so I was a member of the health group led by professionals and headed by professionals and things. And I wanted to speak about psychology, and that is a very challenging space. In other words, it was a very strong group, and there were also newcomers into that group. And one of the things I was sharing with Ricardo was this willingness of trying to show that, yes, I'm a newcomer, and maybe I do not know that much, but I may share whatever I have. And this is very important to be shared with the people so that they may also understand that none of us knows about everything. And so this is, during the pandemic, we tried to develop those spaces together, trying to do something for our community and for our country as well. This is what really helped, the fact that we could, generate that confidence in that cooperative environment. And this has also to do with what Ricardo mentioned, the aspect of empathy, you being in the shoes of the other, in the other's shoes, and also feel empathy regarding knowledge, affection, and also knowing that all of us have an internal wisdom that we may together share and support one another and move forward regarding what we want for our communities, right? This is basically what we discussed in the room. Thank you very much. Now to Jackson. Jackson? Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Olá, pessoal.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Well, I'm Jackson. I'm a psychologist, school psychologist. I'd like to thank Mateus for the invitation to be here. And coincidentally or not, I was talking to him. So I'm going to share with you a bit of what we were talking about. There were two situations that occurred to me in terms of an example of a space of trust and collaboration. And one of them is in a child's institute that we call CEMEI here in Brazil. We understand that there are aspects of education even before the initial kindergarten grades, and the curriculum was very much focused on the children there. They had nap time, they had a lot of snacks, then they had another nap, and several activities to stimulate the children, psychomotricity and many like that. But the teacher did not have a space for his or herself or a space for exchange. So we promoted in one of these places. We noticed that there was some distance and a crisis of professional identity. And we started with a coffee, just a chat with the teachers at another moment so that they could acknowledge themselves. They could exchange experiences. They could share their expectations and share how this going back from the pandemic was and going back to real children, because there were parents doing the jobs of children, because some jobs, some of the tasks of the children are really cool to make. So some parents were doing them for the children. So anyway, they were distant from a dialogue and from a conversation. It was very nice to notice that that was not foreseen, but afterwards, an organization among the teachers started to take place, because there are 2 teachers per class, and they had a 15-minute pause during the day for coffee, and each one had their pause at their own time. They did not talk. And after this chat that we had with them, the teachers started to organize themselves so that at a first moment, one of them from the 2 that are in the class, one of them leaves, and then at another time, the other one leaves. So that allowed a creation of this space for talk, for exchange, for dialogue. And that was very cool, because they ended up creating this space for exchange and for the identity of the teachers of that place. So that was very nice. Another example that was with teenagers, actually. from another school, which is a very violent community, and using techniques from theater. And in psychology, we have psychodrama. So we used playback techniques and improvisation theater and drama. We started to relive scenes that happened in school and that they heard from the outside world, but always thinking about how can I change this? And so bringing from absurd things like the presence of aliens or stuff like that. But we also started this reasoning of leaving that line, of that determinism, of thinking about new ways to solve those issues. And I was very happy to see that they started to use this reasoning within their own conflicts on their day-to-day that they had, how to solve this in another way. And there was a creation of this new way of solving conflict among these students, the ones who had participated in these activities. So that was very nice too. And now I pass the floor to Mateus. Hi, everyone. So as Jackson was saying, we talked about these two experiences, and I said during our talk, I talked about an experience that we had in our lab here. It was groups of empathetic and active listening that we had. And during the pandemic, because of social distancing, we did not have time to talk individually or in small groups. However, we decided to create active and empathetic listening groups after our meetings that we have. We have weekly meetings. And this was very nice because sometimes we ask someone how he or she is feeling, and this person answers back, "Oh, I'm fine," when actually that person might not be fine, or might be fine many times, it can be like that or not. And with these groups, we could have this closer contact with other people, and we could understand how they felt, and we could create this relationship of trust and collaboration. And, if the person was fine or not, he or she could know that they were not alone. And I remembered this experience as a good experience in terms of creating a space for trust and collaboration that was very close. So now I'd like to pass the floor to, let me see,
Michelle or Diego?
Lorenza.
Hola, buenas. Bueno, a mí me tocó conversar con...
Good afternoon. Well, I was along with Maria Paula in my room, and she has already mentioned a little bit of what we have, what we shared, what we discussed. She mentioned about her experience in terms of well-being, qualitative research, her connection with the teachers in terms of their well-being as well. And this started generating different moments of confidence. And also, this kind of confidence may be conveyed to the students, especially the smaller ones, those who are younger, but trying to develop an attitude of hope and other attitudes. Well, on my side, what I discussed was the La Jungla. Our initiative started in the midway during the pandemic, and this was also described in other experiences as well. We went out. We had this exercise of making people feeling like they had to learn about their bodies again, and actually, in other words, sharing a football or a soccer match. There was a whole physical kind of exercise involved. There was a whole communication based on respect, on horizontality as well. And in some way, that enable those individuals who wanted to continue taking part of that might feel integrated or might integrate in this process of reactivation of their own bodies, after the pandemic. So this is one of the discussions that we had, discussing the generation of confidence, because soccer playing or football playing, it allowed the opening up a different space for that. Basically, that's it. So just to complement what Maria Paula had already shared with you. I think now just Anna is still missing, right? Anna, please.
Anna is in our tech host, Diego, so I think it's all fine. I think we're almost done.
Anna is our tech host, actually, so I think that's all. That's all we had. Thank you very much. Thank you all so much.
Robert, would you like to finish this part, or?
Well, I wonder, Michelle, would you like to share some your experience?
Oh, I haven't shared with all of them, with everyone, but I can say that one of my deep connections at this moment is being actually how I can, at the same time, wear the other person's shoes and work into this deep collaboration, but also to keep myself in a balance of not getting to a suffering space. For example, what I have with my indigenous people at this moment, it's been very hard for me to get connection and go to a deeper move and not be connected into their deep values and suffering, what they're going through. So I think this, at the same time that I can put myself into this collaboration, to this empathic process, it's being a very strong journey of self-awareness to keep my awareness and not getting too much involved in a way that I can get stuck. So I think thinking about this Cyflex is being very powerful to me, but it's something that I've been seeing that is not easy to do if we're not in a team, in a very safe and trust container for trust, in a way that we can be into this deep vulnerability. So for me, it's being a very powerful way of keeping myself with this type of awareness and thinking about how this deep connection can actually be in a very powerful composition for collaboration. But at the same time, if it's not healthy and I don't get into my safe and my self-awareness into this process, can be something that can become an obstacle, because then I cannot be in my best position of awareness to think strategically, compose in this complex system. And the power of, and the beauty and the importance of having good relationships to keep ourselves in a safe and sustainable space of living beings together with emotion and values together in the service, putting their will in the service of others. I can say a little bit about that. Not easy, and I'm really appreciate this space also to be supportive to each other.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you, everybody. I mean, it's what I heard was we all spoke about three things really. One is a sense of shared, creative, shared purpose. Like there's a sort of a lovely ambition, whether it's making art or playing sport or looking after children in a classroom or looking after our environment. So that's the first thing. There's kind of a sense of spirited mission. And the other one is empathy. Everyone spoke about empathy. And the real experience of empathy is when you just escort yourself into someone else's world. And the other thing that we all talked about is how there's, as a consequence of this deep connection, is the emergence of wisdom, learning and wisdom. That's wonderful. So thanks for all your stories. And in a moment, we'll take a break. After the break, what I want to do is introduce you to a tool for structuring a reflection. But before we go, I'd like to invite everybody to send their love and their and a heart to Lorenza. I learned Lorenza, that you're not feeling so well. So if everybody would like to send a heart to Lorenza. She's actually come online to help us with the session after the break. So thanks, Lorenza, for coming. And thanks, everybody. So let's take a break now for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back online and we'll spend maybe half an hour or so introducing you to a collective matrix. This is a tool that's a little bit like the matrix that was introduced when we did the personal development session right at the beginning. So have a good break. I'll see you shortly. Okay. So what I'd like to do is just start working on this matrix. And let me just bring it up. Would it be useful if I shared the screen, or can you all see the Miro board without me sharing?
I think it's good for you to share a little bit, Robert, and then after,
Okay.
if it's not needed, we take it off. Is it okay?
Okay, sure, I'll share a bit. All right, so
And
here's...
is it okay for you, Diego and Lorenza? I'll pin both of you so we can also all have you in the screen. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Claro.
So so the group is La Jungla, isn't it? How do you spell
Claro,
that?
la jungla.
Spell it for me.
Es como
La Jungla.
jungle, pero con una al final, en vez de una E.
I hope that's right. Is that right?
No, falta la L, jungle, como...
No,
Ahí.
there's an L missing there, right? Yeah, that's correct now. Yeah.
That's okay. Okay. All right. So what's some of the dilemmas that you're having? Challenges and dilemmas? And big questions you might have. Just a few ideas. I wonder, Marcelo, would you be kind enough to put the sticky notes on as we're going? Or who's,
yes, of course. I can.
Yep, and Diego, you can as well, of course, and Lorenza. So what's some of the challenges and opportunities, dilemmas, questions you've got in La Jungla? Yeah, La Jungla.
Bueno, hay diversos desafíos.
Well, there are a number of different challenges. Actually, it is hard for me, Robert, to actually set myself away from a theme which has been present in the past 3 weeks. Actually, not to go too deep into this topic, there was a situation, actually, there was an accident that happened to one of the persons of the organization, and actually that generated that generated a tremendous challenge in the organization, because we were moving towards a certain direction with some needs, dilemmas, and also challenges. But actually, from the moment that happened, which happened in the beginning of this month, everything changed. That was an emergency situation. And well, by having to face that situation as a collective group, as our institution, La Jungla, we managed to approach some specific problems. Well, actually, we had to contact had to approach the family members of that person who was affected by that accident, and also we had to support the process of management of that emergency situation in terms of going for resources and so on. And I think that, well, this is a process we're going through right now. But if we're talking in terms, more general terms within the organization, we have challenges, yes, related to to our area that has to do with communication, the need to generate spaces of meetings and training and also trying to establish a football league, which is mixed, actually involving men and women, involving local, those are the local challenges, and finally, generate protocols and a way of understanding the community, allowing us to relate with them in a respectful way, in a safe space, as others have mentioned here.
Okay.
And
So
also, finally, another point is to be able to attract resources to obtain that, to achieve that.
Yeah. Okay. So there's 4 really good examples of challenges, opportunities, dilemmas. So handle emergencies and look after related families. Put in place better communication systems. Build the league and put in place the protocol so it actually works, and generate resources. So for the sake of being able to move through this quickly, can I suggest that we pick on communication as an example, as the one we focus on? Would that be okay?
Sí, claro, cualquiera.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah, it could be any of those. Any of them will be a challenge anyway, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Lorenzo, did you want to add anything to challenges and dilemmas, the things that are?
No, quizás como complementar en que, claro, la
Maybe just to complement it, of course, the fragility of the processes that we're all going through. We have been working on something, and then something suddenly happens, and that makes us unstable, and that actually somewhat halts our process. So it's important to understand that we are in a collective of people, and that we have to actually understand that we have to be flexible trying to approach these things. So this is necessary to be done, and this is the kind of work that has always been a dilemma, has had to do with the management of resources, or resource management. And in addition to that emergency, resources for us were, and also the resources like those have always been an issue.
Yep. Yeah, no, I totally understand. So I'm hoping that you and everyone online can get a sense of this focuses the conversation. So it allows people just to get out onto the table all the things that are actually important. So at the next phase of all of the opportunities and dilemmas and questions and things that come up, is to choose one to focus on for this conversation. So we'll move down to the solutions ideas area. So let's use communication as an example. So down in this part. So just quickly, in relation to the communication challenges that you've got, about meeting times and everything else, what are some of the ideas and solutions that you're trying or you could try?
Bueno, creo que en el tema de las comunicaciones hay dos.
Well, I think that's under communication, we have 2 major aspects related to internal communication, our capability based on the initiative of generating some smooth communication within the organization, and this is internal. And the second thing has to do with the disseminating, divulging what we do, our purpose, to other organizations or other stakeholders. And so there are 2 different fronts to approach in this field of communication. And so this is what we propose. So in terms of internal communication, see, there's a possibility of finding a solution to generate a structure allowing us to work in circles, in which each circle would generate proposals that they are also very clearly communicated in sessions, so weekly sessions, to start then building up and also moving together in a very communicated, articulated way in among the different areas. And I think that this has been one of the solutions that we have been lately adopting regarding internal communication. Now, regarding external communication, today we are going through a process of co-designing, the co-design of a magazine or something like that, and actually, or a brochure, trying to give an idea to people who come over to the sports courts, so that they know more about physical activities, so that they understand what we are doing, what are our concerns from a more political perspective, in terms of discussions and these things, trying to thought about creating chronicles. And we also thought that maybe we could generate a podcast or a discussion of different people, trying to make people aware of what is going on currently regarding our organization, right? And also so that we may disseminate that information so that more people are aware of that, and also generate publications or postings in our social media. Instagram is our strongest channel. We have just started with LinkedIn, Facebook as well, and it's important to start feeding those channels so that we may divulge or disseminate more what we have been doing, right?
Yep, beautiful.
And so with each one of these things will generate activities, and each person who will take part of that will have to take that responsibility over.
Yep, fantastic. So I want to maintain a bit of a rhythm. I know this is, normally you'd spend this whole conversation, you'd give an hour and a half, because then you can really, it results in this an emotional shift once you actually get what's inside us out. But for today, I just want to step through it quite quickly so you've got a sense of the framework. So having just thought about those two ideas and solutions, in relation to internal and external communication, if we kind of go up here, what's the value of these solutions and the ideas now of these solutions and ideas now and in the long run? So maybe Lorenzo, you can speak here. So you talked about sharing good information, developing trust, those kind of things. Why are these solutions valuable?
Creo que son valiosas lo interno porque
Well, I
permite
think they're very, very valuable, especially internally, because they do allow the feeling of identity and belonging, so that people feel that they are in a safe space, a safe location, which makes sense regarding what the project is doing right now, and also with whom we have been working, and also the way it is working. So I think that the external space is very important, so that people can understand, and we may generate more space regarding ourselves. And at the same time, we should filter out, actually screen these individuals, these kinds of attitudes. But sometimes there are attitudes that, well, people sometimes they do not respect the community, and this is why I think communication is fundamental.
Yep. Yeah, beautiful. And I'm sure if you spent time going into this, if you had your team there and you really explored what's the value of both of these internal and external meeting strategies, circles versus sharing information through a magazine, podcast, social media, it would go very deep. So let's just quickly now leap to this one here, number 3. What kind of things do you find yourself doing or not doing instead of working together in circles or giving energy to communicating via these social media platforms or things like that, setting them up? What occupies your time, or things you've tried that aren't working, or what do you find yourself doing or not doing instead of this?
Creo que algo que intentamos a nivel de comunicación.
I think one of the things we tried regarding internal communication was that in each session we should generate, say, the minutes of the meeting, right? In other words, having a log or a registration in some way of what was being discussed, of things that were proposed in each one of the meetings. And that was not easy to achieve because that requires document management regarding that effective kind of internal communication. So we changed the form of the minutes as a document so that it could become something similar to an exercise, for example, of having a survey and then collecting the results of that survey, which might generate or so that this could be this could also be part of the magazine brochure or whatever, something that could be agile in some way. And on the other hand, for now talking about external communication, right now we tried to develop a communication strategy that could be well fed, but it took us a long time to find people who had the appropriate amount of time to be able to manage those communication strategies, people who could be along with us throughout this process. And so that we ended up, doing this trial and error process, trying to find different times of the day to do these things, the dates and the frequency of posting and these things. This was something much more reactive than a result of a planning. But up to now, this is somewhat working. And when we have more people who are interested in that, maybe we will be able to have a higher level of participation in this collective work.
Yeah, yeah. So just playing back some of what I'm hearing. So that you talked about in terms of minutes, that it wasn't easy. And you're struggling to find people. So you shifted exercise. So, but also you also mentioned that in relation to the comms strategy, finding people was hard. So they're the kind of things that go into this space. Like we're having trouble finding people. It was and managing time and doing things by trial and error. Did you want to say anything, Lorenza, about the sort of things that you're trying or doing or not doing that aren't working in relation to comms?
Sí, creo que Diego tiene razón en lo que dijo.
Yes, I think Diego is absolutely right regarding what he said and what he understood. I think that this worked. It seems that there was more interest on that because, as we said in the previous sessions, we have an organization with more than one central group, more towards outside, and we're trying to make it more participatory, and people start getting integrated and start participating even further, being part of that process. I think that this transformation in our structure, that was done well done, and now we have to maintain communication. That is one of the most difficult things, using tools, and these things.
Yeah, okay. So when finding people or engaging people in things that weren't easy, what were they doing instead of getting involved in communications? What were they busy doing? What was distracting them?
Estaban siendo más bien parte de la organización como...
Actually, yeah, they were part of the organization, but just in terms of playing. That's what their participation was, and not exactly trying to devote their time energy, experience in activities that had to do with the administration itself, with the management of the organization, with the self-management of the organization. These people participated, yes, but in the sense of going for the coaching, for playing soccer or football. But now some of these individuals, some of these persons, they are starting to be willing to get involved with activities related to communication.
Yeah, right. Okay. So there's the point. So the things that you're doing and not doing instead of the administration is playing. So I think in quadrant 3, that is the important point. So it's kind of what, instead of actually getting into the administration, what do you find yourself doing and not doing? So there's a preference for playing. So let's move up to the this quadrant now. So for those people who are distracted and wanting to play instead of doing the administrative tasks, what were their concerns or objections or competing commitments? I'd imagine that it'd be something like, well, if I don't keep playing the games, I'll miss out on what's actually most important. It might be something like that.
Sí, yo creo que...
Sí, yo pienso, I'm sorry, yes, I think it is not easy, in fact. It is very hard for us to actually to be in the other people's shoes. Question is why were they not more engaged or actually going into deeper commitments with the organization? But I think that eventually they should be thinking about going there to play in these things, but this has to do with the skills of each one of those persons. Some of these individuals, they prioritize their mental, physical status, their well-being, and so the fact for them of being able to play is a good opportunity for these people. This is a priority for them, and maybe they will not devote their time to work for the organization, and these people are not going to be paid for that. This is not the organization not going to give them any money for that activity. Maybe this is a kind of valuable time that they should be using to take care of their home, work at home, or taking care of the kids, or working, or sharing, I don't know, maybe taking care of somebody else, and all these things. And so I do believe that there are many different reasons for them not to commit to what goes further beyond the fact of playing football or soccer. Right.
Okay, so now you're actually getting to really important points. So the concern is I won't spend enough time with my family, or the concern is that I won't get paid, and it's not a valuable use of my time, or a concern is I don't have the skills. Ricardo, you wanted to actually say something?
Sí, pues estaba pensando justamente que también puede pasar.
Yes, I was thinking that maybe what may happen there is that there are people who start playing, etc., and as they gain more, actually, as they become more credible, actually, with the organization gains more credibility on their side, they start then participate even more, because by playing all together, they start generating a critical mass, and then sometimes they may disseminate more activities and more people may join. And so all of a sudden, these people play a more passive role, but that they may be very important in the sense that they are the beneficiaries, but at the same time, they also help maintain that initiative so that the initiative may continue working. What may happen at the same time is that maybe these are things that after the sessions, after they played, after they have taken part of the lectures, presentations, and as they identify much more with the values there, they gain more credibility, they more confidence, and maybe they will feel more empowered. Possibly that will not happen to all, but maybe there will be some who may take more roles of leadership in the organization as well. And well,
y por otro lado, como también es importante el generar esa
it's very important to have these people to build a living organization. So it's very important to have their confidence in.
That's very interesting. So I can tell already we're just now skimming over the real value of structuring the conversation this way, because we're just on the edge of what the adaptive challenge is. And if we had more time and I was able to coach you through this conversation, we could probe to a point where we actually took an insight into something we weren't aware of. But I'm hoping everybody can feel it. There's something in relation to these competing commitments about family and not being engaged for various reasons, because it's not feeling skilled or not being paid or needing to devote time to family or needing to actually be nourished by physical movement. There's various things, but I think underneath that is something critical in relation to these behaviors that are about surviving a situation that may not necessarily be pulling them toward thriving. But let's move on. So the next question is, based on our perspectives in terms of this half, moving toward thriving, and this half, the behaviors about surviving, what are we assuming? So in relation to 1 and 2, Lorenza, maybe you can tell us. So if you engage in these communication strategies internally and externally, to realize the kind of value you've spoken about here, what are you assuming that this will mean in the long run?
Si trabajáramos en eso, dices?
You mean if we work on that?
Yeah, so it'll be something like, we assume if we have good communications internally and externally, La Junga will grow, we'll have more girls involved in sport, self-esteem will go up, all of those kind of things. They're all the assumptions.
Claro, eso mismo creo que podría crecer en
Yes,
participación.
definitely. And I think that this could grow in terms of participation, both in Valparaíso, which is somewhat a cradle of our organization where it was born initially, and also in other parts, not only in Valparaíso, but in other parts, be able to well communicate the message of generating a safe place, a mixed place, a non-competitive place where people feel that they're enjoying their playing activity. And if I could convey this in a clear way, both internally and externally, we might generate lots and lots of different networks and different types of impacts in different parts.
Yep, that's it. So that's the key assumption. And I think, Marcelo, which we're in under question 5 now in this area here. So that's a key assumption, that in time, you'll generate more safe spaces. So now the next question is, in relation to the moves toward thriving, when everybody is choosing to do something different than administration, what are the assumptions? And the assumption, Lorenza, might be something like, well, if I spend time doing administration instead of playing sport, I'm assuming I'm going to miss out on something valuable. That may be something like that.
Perder algo valioso y también no aprovechar oportunidades que...
Yeah, missing something valuable and not taking advantage of opportunities which might be interesting to be explored.
Yep. And there might be another assumption. If you go deep, if people are feeling like they don't have the skills, some people might be assuming that if I do this and everybody finds out I don't have enough skills, they'll think I'm stupid.
Por eso parte importante de este espacio es
This is why an important part of that space is really pointing at some kind of space which just does not generate that lack of confidence, something that may help people generate confidence so that they may develop and learn together rather than showing, well, I have the skills, I'm good for this and that, etc. No, no, we're all learning collectively, right? We are changing together.
Yep. And so what you've just said, Lorenza, is the kind of shift that's having this conversation can generate. Because you can imagine if you had a team of young people, you know, who have been played a tournament, and you got to the point where people openly said, well, I'm afraid that if I did that, I may appear to not be good enough, or I'll feel ashamed in front of others because I don't have the skill. That will, if that is actually alive within others, getting that out in the open will cause a powerful shift in generating the trust that La Junga is going for. What do you think, Lorenza and Diego?
Yo creo que un poco.
Well, I think this is basically this perspective. This ends up leading to something which leads somebody to play an instrument or play sports or play some kind of sports activity like a game or a match or something. At the same time, this allows you to explore your own fears, but in a space of confidence, a space of hosting, which allows a process of learning to you without being a traumatic kind of experience. So that eventually, in the background, you have this space of confidence, and so that you may also realize things you had not previously realized, and you may even grow from that. And in this sense, you may then actually both mention what happens within the organization itself or in the football court or soccer court, and try to build all this collectively as if it were a game. And we have to understand also that we may make mistakes and we may show our skills, but we may also fail at some point. This is something which I think really generates confidence.
Yep. Yeah, beautiful. Any thoughts, Lorenza?
Me hace sentido lo que dice Diego y me hace recordar.
Yeah, what Diego has just mentioned makes a lot of sense, and that reminds me of a survey in which people said that for them, La Jungla was a space that was rich of experiences, which means meeting new people, not only playing football or soccer and actually scoring goals and these things, but actually relating to people who actually are concerned about the others, concerned about, and this is a space, etc. This is basically what Diego said, and he's right.
Yep. So having done this very quick matrix, are there any choice points occurring to you? Things you could choose to experiment with over the next few weeks, perhaps, as an example?
En el ámbito de que estuvimos hablando, como de lo comunicacional.
Regarding what we have been talking here about communication, is this what you want us to do?
Just as an example, given the conversation we've just had, that's right.
Okay.
Is anything occurring to you that you could choose to do a bit differently or experiment with?
Sí, yo creo que como transmitir.
Yes, I do think that maybe conveying things, messages assertively, not only internally to the organization, but also externally, trying to convey this value, not only in terms of survival, not only locally, but collectively within a whole territory. I think that may generate a profound or deep impact as far as the participation of the participants or their engagement and also the devotion of each one of the members so that the organization continues working. And also to show us externally our organization as an attractive, as an enticing alternative, because it is contributing in terms of the value of the territory. And those resources might be also attracted and might also promote the well-being, material well-being, emotional material benefit to the participants. I think in terms of communication also, we were thinking lately or recently, we starting with something because, well, I mentioned the accident, right? That was a very traumatic kind of thing. We're still overcoming that difficult moment. And so we developed a campaign at communication level, which was most successful than any other communication we actually promoted before, because the people who heard us, they realized that we were contributing to a social tissue, something that has an impact in the territory. And regarding communication, that's what I would say. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Lorenza, you got any thoughts?
Eso, como pese a que estamos en una pausa.
That's it. We are actually in a moment. We're actually we're on hold, if you will, at this time due to what happened. We did not even expect that we could communicate so successfully, and so many people would come over, and that this would cause a tremendous impact. We did not expect that, and we also did not go for that much, because our energy was concentrated somewhere else. We just communicated what had happened, and that's what happened. Of course, we eventually are generating a meaning to people who trust us, and they know that we will be doing all these things to have an impact of what is going on around us. And so I think that by as we leave this period of standby period or on hold period, we will have to continue communicating the messages as we were doing, but in a very clear way, generating the materials we want to communicate all these things, and we would continue what we have been doing.
Yep. Yeah, beautiful. So thanks both. I mean, we've just had a 50-minute conversation, or maybe a little less, 30 minutes. And I'm hoping that both of you have found this valuable, and that you've all got a sense of how powerful this is, particularly if you've got a group of people and you give it time. It's incredible how deep you can go. And we didn't actually park additional information up here, but I hope that was enough, a very brief introduction. This particular Miro board, you're welcome to make copies of it and use it. It's got 3 of them in Spanish and Portuguese. I think someone's made a copy here. So feel free to make a copy of this and use it yourself, but also the PDF that I put in the chat has these same 3 matrices, and you can write it up on a whiteboard or use it on butcher's paper or whatever you like. But how did you find that, Diego and Lorenza, as an experience? Was that useful? And I'd be interested in others' brief comments before we start to wind up today's session.
La verdad es que el poder contrastar.
En realidad, poder hacer esta comparación de perspectivas, de opiniones, ¿no? Como un ejercicio guiado en cuanto que estamos haciendo aquí, siento que it's like a therapy, actually a personal therapy. It's not only personal, but also collective, because being able to verbalize and speak about those things, when we start doing that, we start realizing some aspects that might be, say, hiding, or because with Lorenz, well, I have been more frequently talking to Lorenz, and so doing this exercise remotely also updates us and makes us synchronized within our individual perspectives as well, right? And so I think this has been an excellent exercise. Yeah. Yes, on my part, me too. I also think it was quite important, because as Diego, we were somewhat dispersed mentally with all those emotions in our minds, but this helped us all of a sudden to focus and to connect to the projects we are putting forward.
Yeah, wonderful.
¿Decir algo?
Ricardo, do you want to say something?
Sí, pues viendo un poco el ejercicio también.
Yeah, looking, it's about the exercise. This exercise has been excellent to help us structure our ideas and all these aspects that we may consider in some kind of initiative. Sometimes we forget it. This may happen when you have when you are an entrepreneur, for example, or when you have a social initiative of something or something like that. But there are many things to think about: administration processes, financial aspects, how to communicate, how to attract more stakeholders, etc. And all these things may become too complex because it's too big, and so that might be quite frightening. And this tool helps us have some more clarity regarding, or by means of the dialogue, actually going through this process of reflection, looking at each one of these quadrants. And I think that this is a very useful way to bring about a very agile kind of management, finding solutions, finding things that fail and things that could improve.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. And you'll all notice that I just put a link in the chat to the resources folder. So in that, in the action learning folder, I've actually prepared, I'll just quickly share it so you can see it, worksheets. Like this, gradually each session, I'm preparing a chapter of what will become a field book. So they're in English, you know, as well as Spanish and Portuguese. And the Spanish and Portuguese are just Google translated. So they may not be very good, but I try to do that at least for you. So this gives you instructions on how to have exactly that conversation. Some of the ideas behind it about how relapse is utterly natural, and how to set up the conversation and structure the conversation in relation to each of the quadrants. So please take a look at that. The example that I've used in this one is an example from a university library group that I worked with, but you could populate it with your own example. All right. Now, I hope that was valuable. We've got about 15 minutes left. So I just would like to transition into the last bit of our session today. Let's go back to sharing screen. So central to this is something we touched on much earlier in the session as well. This conversation pulls for what are the fundamental needs and values that any particular strategy needs to be responded to. And so you'll notice that it asks, you know, for solutions and then the values that are associated with that, but also things you're not doing and doing instead of that, and your concerns, which are also the underbelly of your value. Right. So if you're concerned you'll miss out on playing soccer that's important, then you turn that over and you see what they value is connection and belonging. And so this conversation allows you to name what are the most fundamental needs that we have to meet, which is deep connection, but also contribution, and the ways in which we uniquely value doing it, whether it's playing sport or engaging in communication or looking after family. And so if you can actually make these, you know, get all of those on the table, the values and needs that are actually underpinning all behaviors, whether they're surviving things that are happening or to do with thriving, then your strategies, the choice points, will be much more holistic. So I write a little bit about this in the worksheet. So this is another powerful conversation you can have with your people. So as we're parting, I want to hand it back to you, Michelle, to facilitate this. We wanted to explore, having got to this phase in the process, what do you think might be possible in 2023 as we're approaching we're going to finish off the action learning process this year and celebrate, but then set ourselves up to do something, the whole process again next year. And what do you think might be possible as a result of our collaboration? So Michelle, would you like to facilitate that?
Yes, thank you, Robert. I know we are very short in time, but it's much appreciation with your sharing, and also to Diego and Lorenza. I know that Lorenza had left, but if everyone could just send a little appreciation for them to have the courage and also the openness of coming and sharing their activity and their experience and wisdom. So if you could just post in the chat the appreciation, and thank you so much. Diego, thank you for La Jungla and the organization, and also to all the content that you brought openly into this aquarium experience. So thank you so much. We have an opportunity to start having our community lab. So today we're actually having our first community action lab part of this whole journey, which is cycle 7. We're gonna have a couple of days and meetings, which we have the opportunity to co-create and have this space of sharing and learning process, which we're gonna bring a couple of the contents, but also it would be very much appreciated if you have the opportunity and chance to bring the content of your own organization learning journey. Like Diego and Lorenza, they brought today a little bit of their experience, and Robert was sharing some of the content of the matrix for us. But at the same time, we are having the opportunity to share with our communities, and we might have a couple of questions and also recommendations, suggestions, and also sharing content of knowledge and other tools that we might be using in our journeys. As Robert said in the beginning, it's key for us to have the openness and the freedom to adjust the process according to the how and the maturity of our organizations are, and in the level and the stage that we are having with the deep connections throughout this whole process in our ecosystems. So you feel free and comfortable, and also in the next probably day of our community, and also, oops, we have more people coming. We're gonna probably have an invitation for co-creation and openness for organizations that would like to bring their own cases. We might have at least 1 or 2 per meeting, and we're going to be adding this content of sharing and also an opportunity to bring the content that we might believe this is important for us in every single session. So if any of you already know that they would like to be in our next session to be part of this aquarium process, or either to bring as a TEDx, like a TED Talk, 10 minutes of where you can bring your own organization process and case, which we can all have and give some support, suggestions, and make questions, so you can emphasize your journey and get deeper and deeper into your process. It's more than welcome. And the other hand, also, if you have any suggestions to bring and come along and maybe give your case as a suggestion and be an aquarium to have this mentorship open with Robert, Marcelo, and I, and also all of us as a community in Latin America, we also can bring and adjust that in the best way, in the best format, in a way that we can take the most advantage of this. So if you have any opportunity or any questions related to that, please send it to us as much as you can. Share your content in our WhatsApp group as the same way. We're going to be open to that opportunity. If you do have anybody, I don't know if Gail, if you would like to bring, I know that you guys are having an amazing opportunity by coming from Earth Regenerators, coming to this community. There's a lot of things that maybe can be shared here with us. We will be very appreciated if you could bring as well. I don't know if you feel, do you feel comfortable about bringing your case in our next?
I'm just a little unclear. I think I might have missed what you said in the beginning. What specifically are we bringing?
Would you like to bring your own case to share a little bit throughout this journey about the community conservation? It's going to be 10 minutes, can be 10 minutes of content sharing, or you can bring one of your specific questions, and then we can mentorship also to give you some questions and suggestions. Yes,
maybe I'll email Robert privately to get a little clear, because we have multiple things we could talk about, and I'm not sure which one would be best.
Yeah.
So
Maybe a quick response to everybody. So we've just introduced you to the pro-social matrix. So the assumption is that going forward, you'll end up having that conversation or similar conversations with your people as we go through several cycles of trying to realize the change. We've all named little projects. So we want to create a space every fortnight for people to do a mini presentation on how they're going with their project and how they might have had the kind of conversation that we've just had using the matrix. And we can share wisdom and insights. So you can choose whatever is most topical for you. Okay.
so basically work through that matrix on a specific problem and then present it.
Yep. Or
Okay,
aspects
yeah,
of it, please.
we could do that next time, sure.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you. It can be so many things, but yes, you can get that one too. Ricardo, would you like to bring your own case too in our next meeting?
Might be an option. I will have to talk to Lina to see to what extent we can advance on the application of the tool, but I let you know in advance.
Thank you. Thank you. So please, thank you so much. Everyone who is here, I don't know if Violeta, Maria Paula would like to bring, or either Mateus, Felipe, and also Jackson. I know they're also working a couple of things. So please feel comfortable about bringing us a couple of suggestions and also your content and questions that you would like to have that answered. Mateus? Sim?
Sim, acho que a gente pode trazer relato também.
Yes, I think we can also bring a case. Wonderful. So let us considering.
Have all the languages, but that's okay. Let's have and consider we're gonna have Gail's and Mateo's presentation in our next meeting. And then if you have any questions and adjustments, we can set up meetings, extra meetings to just talk and exchange in a way that we can be adding this content to this community. Is it okay? Okay, thank you so much. To finish and wrap up our meeting today, I'm gonna share again our Mentimeter with the questions that Robert had just shared with us related to what do you think might be possible in 2023 in your community, and what might be possible as a result of our collaboration as Latin American community. So we're going to be sharing here the content of our Mentimeter. So if you could please add o que pode ser possível em 2023 na sua
What can be
comunidade.
possible in 2023 in your community, and what might be possible as a result of our collaboration here as our Latin American community.
En su comunidad.
What do you think might be possible in 2023 in your community? She's repeating the question again. Well,
So Gail, we are already starting our work to spread the message, save a parrot, save a forest, save a people. We hope in 2023 to spread this far and wide, and perhaps this community can help us to do that. This is for sure. Yes, establecer vínculos más fuertes con las personas en el territorio, consolidar una visión compartida de trabajo, estructurar procesos de gobernanza. Sí, también. Como resulta de nuestra colaboración, creo que podríamos construir un tejido sólido de
as a
emprendimiento.
result of our collaboration, I think that we should build solid tissue of social entrepreneurship that might allow us to strengthen our work.
Posicionar la Liga de la Jungla como referente.
Position the La Jungla League as a reference in a mixed space of care and collaboration for 2023. Co-design and carry out a football tournament based on the theme of some organization or some. In Brazil, do you think you will have the opportunity to? I think they have. I think that if we manage to do things right, we may visit different territories as well. So that would be another purpose, another objective. That's perfect.
See, Mateus, so here you have the opportunity of talking to Diego and to the team at Conviver, who were talking about the possibility of bringing La Jungla to Curitiba, right? That's true, that's true. We're up for it to have this partnership, sure.
This way, we already have a way to build bridges between the organizations that are here. Right, Diego?
Sí, me parece genial. Creo que
yeah, it seems to be great to me. Yeah, definitely. It's a wonderful experience, a very, very, very strong, very sound, and I'm really moved to think about the kind of impact we will be achieving. That's wonderful. Developing an internal work, a social work that actually may change or even removes all barriers, all these things. In 2023, we may
in 2023, we will be able to implement a pilot project of Dinga
co-create this component in partnership with the school.
In partnership with
Not
the
only
school,
one,
several schools,
various,
several
different,
schools,
many schools.
I think that's it at this moment. There is a little video that I would like to share if you do have a couple of time, a little time, that I think it says something about what we're thinking about, not just related to our communities, but the aspiration of actually increase and spread out, like Gail said and had mentioned in her message, how we can actually send the message throughout this whole place. There is a little presentation that I would like to share as a music, and I know a couple of people that needs to leave. It's okay, but just to say a goodbye and have this little time. I don't know if you had heard about this song Latinoamérica, Calle 13. So just to pop the button.
Esta canción se la quiero dedicar a todos los latinoamericanos que se encuentran aquí en esta sala hoy.
I would like to devote, actually, to offer this song to all Latin Americans who are here, and this comes from the depth of my heart. All those who are watching us in Latin America, so that you may actually go to your neighborhoods, your streets, your roads, so that you think about the smells of your country, that you feel this in the depth of your hearts.
Thank you, muchas gracias, muito obrigada a presença de vocês, que a gente consiga, that we can actually emphasize the power of Latin America with our heart and build and actually make what we're actually thinking about, not just for our continents, but also throughout the whole world.